Russian President Vladimir Putin says the formation of a multipolar world order is in progress at the opening of the three-day BRICS summit in Kazan. Mr. Putin also highlighting that more than 30 countries are keen to join the bloc of emerging economies, with the group planning to discuss its expansion.
Безусловно, игнорировать беспрецедентный интерес стран глобального Юга и Востока к укреплению контактов с БРИКС было бы неправильно. В той или иной форме такое стремление выразили уже более 30 государств. При этом необходимо выдержать баланс и не допустить снижения эффективности БРИКС.
President Putin is set to hold a number of bilateral meetings with various leaders on the sidelines of this summit, including Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Earlier today, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres arrived in Kazan, his first visit to Russia in more than 2 years. His deputy spokesman says the UN chief will reaffirm his well-known positions on the Ukraine conflict and outline, quote, the conditions for a just peace. However, his visit has drawn criticism from Kyiv, which has accused Mr. Guterres of making the wrong choice by accepting an invitation issued by a, quote, war criminal. In focus right now, though, is a bilateral meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. These are their first structured formal talks since 2020, when clashes along their disputed Himalayan border strained ties. It comes after both parties reached a truce in just the last few days to end a 4-year military standoff in the eastern Ladakh region. The two sides paving the way to ease tensions after coming to an agreement on patrolling arrangements along the line of actual control. Although there are limited details about the disengagement, China says it is in close communication with India on this issue. And for Ishan Garg joins us live from New Delhi. Ishan, do you see anything coming out of these talks between President Xi and Prime Minister Modi that will build on this recent improvement in relations?
Well, this is going to be the first bilateral between the two leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping, in 5 years, though they have met multiple times on numerous occasions in global summits. So there is a high likelihood that there are going to be substantial conversations between the two leaders. And at the top of the agenda is certainly likely to be the border talks, because we have seen a lot of activity happening in the past few days and weeks, with the two sides finally saying that they have made substantial progress. And there has been some sort of an agreement made between the two countries as far as patrolling rights are concerned in some of the contested areas in the Himalayan region. So it is certainly likely that more developments could be likely on that front, because India has said in the past several months that relations with China cannot go absolutely back to normal until the troops are still engaged on the border. And as long as there is going to be a border dispute, the relationship cannot go back to normal. So there's going to be a discussions about that, because tens of thousands of soldiers from the two sides are still deployed at the border. But we are given to understand that after the last round of communications, there are plans for the armies to be scaled back, if not drastically, at least by some margin. So these issues are certainly likely to be discussed. And of course, the Russia-Ukraine war could also be on the agenda, because this is an issue that is one of the top priorities in terms of foreign policy of the two countries. And though India and China's relations with Russia differ in terms of their nature and their magnitude, the two countries are certainly considered close to Moscow. So that's another thing that the two leaders are likely to talk about.
Oh, Ishan, as you mentioned, the last few days and as you mentioned also weeks, we've seen encouraging noises on this border issue between China and India from both sides. The agreement on patrolling, now that is a fairly limited one, but do you see that moving towards any substantial progress in moving forward this issue of border tensions between India and China that has, I suppose, riled tensions for decades now?
Well, the hope certainly is that this recent development becomes sort of a stepping stone towards some sort of normalization of ties, because analysts are saying that what this border pact, as what many are calling restoring patrolling rights of the two countries in contested areas, is, if nothing, at least a confidence-building measure. And it will be followed by further similar measures during which the military sides of the two countries can suss out how they are behaving, how they are cooperating with each other. And from then on, there can be a potential for further engagements. And with engagements has to come the idea of disengaging from the borders between the two countries' armies. Because in the past few weeks, we've also seen massive calls from the business community in India asking the Indian government to enhance business ties with China, because we are seeing India-China trade relations being lopsided. Imports from China are rising and exports not so much. So there is certainly calls from within the country for at least the business relations to be restored to some degree. And it is likely that we could see some development on that front after Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Xi Jinping. But analysts are also saying that India and China are two countries which move rather slowly on the diplomatic front. So they are not expecting major breakthroughs, but it could certainly be a stepping stone towards eventual normalization of ties.
Thanks to Ishan Garg reporting live from New Delhi.